In today's video, we're going to be updating All Our American Girls video. We haven't done this in 2 years. Usually we do it every other year, but this is going to be the last one of these that we film. Not because we're against the idea of getting more dolls, but it's unlikely that our collection will expand to have enough dolls to make this video not super redundant. And even so, we'd have to pull out all of the old dolls that you've now seen for several cycles. And it's a long video as it is, so I don't want to keep like making the same thing over and over and boring you. So this is the last time we're going to be filming them all together. Maybe in the future, if we get a few, we'll make some kind of like collection update. But we did, for the sake of this video, try to dress everybody in clothes that had not previously been worn in one of these collection videos. We also did try to include some like new informations or anecdotes about the old dolls just to make it more interesting. But if you do not want to watch all of the previous dolls that have appeared in past videos, I'll put a timestamp in now so you can go view them. All the dolls that weren't featured, and some of them haven't even appeared on my channel yet because I'm not doing any like American Girl opening videos anymore and things like that. If you want to see pictures of these dolls or read more about them or see the outfits and things we have, feel free to check out our American Girl albums on Flickr. You don't need a Flickr to view them. So without further ado, let's get to it.
Molly was our first American Girl who I got for Christmas in 1996. I have filmed her in every collection video, and honestly I don't think I've ever done her justice, because to sum up how much I love this doll in like just a minute or two is really difficult. But I had wanted Molly back when I was in 2nd grade when a librarian had suggested I read the American Girl books. I connected with the character like right away, and from then on I started bothering my parents about a Molly doll. The dream held strong throughout the summer after 2nd grade, but honestly, by the time I was in Christmas in 3rd grade, I'd kind of let the dream die. Like, I didn't think it was going to happen. I remember opening her up and just being in awe that she was real and that she was mine. Being really confused because she wasn't wearing her glasses, and my dad's like, "No, Colleen, look again." And I said, "Oh, it's just a baby doll." And then I realized that the Meet Molly book was there. I was crazy about her. Like, I took her everywhere. By 5th grade, I started getting other dolls. But by the time I was halfway through 6th grade, I just decided I really only was interested in Molly still. So I gave Shelly my other dolls, and then 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, like all through high school, I was completely obsessed in Molly. To sum up how I feel about her in a short space of time is really difficult, but she is my absolute favorite doll out of all the thousands of dolls we have, and she will always be my favorite.
So my first American Girl was Addie. I got her for my 6th birthday because I really wanted an American Girl like Colleen so we could play together. And when I got my Addie, I picked her because I loved her like ethnic textured hair, like the afro hair. I thought it was really fascinating, and I loved her old-fashioned clothes. So when I got her, a lot of people were confused because they thought I'd want a doll that looked like me, but for me, dolls were always about exploring like things outside of myself, different cultures and like different like looks and appearances. So that's why I was drawn to Addie. I have a lot of really vivid memories from that time in my life when it was just Molly and Addie. Like, I remember we used to go to my mom's office cleaning job. It was actually where my dad worked at a water department, and we would go there on the weekends and we would run through the whole office pretending we were inside a monster. And we would run with Molly and Addie, and I remember we would like, there were places we were scared to go in, like the garage where they kept all the trucks, and we'd have lunch out by the in the front with the trees with like the little juice boxes and stuff Mom would pack us. But it's like Molly, I can't really summarize how much I love Addie, and she'll always have a special place in my heart. And even though there are dolls that I've grown to love just as much as her, like, I would never pick another one to be my first. And this is actually not her original head because I didn't know how to take care of this hair, and I would use a wig brush so it balded. So this is a head that my dad let me get in 2003. We have Samantha. I, of course, was the first one of us to have 2 American Girls. I got her for my 7th birthday, a year after I got Addie, and I was torn between her and Josefina and Felicity, but Colleen told me I couldn't get Josefina. So
The truth is, I secretly wanted Josefina.
I decided to get Samantha because she was like the most iconic character. She was sort of like the one that was on all the branding. And when she came, we were actually on vacation. It was like the worst vacation ever. Let's see, we got food poisoning. Our campground was really terrible. Dad's boat started to sink in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, and like the Coast Guard didn't come to save us. It was other people on another boat that came. It was an awful vacation, and when we got back, Samantha's box was on the front step soaking wet from the rain. She was like my fanciest American Girl as a kid. I thought she was just like a China doll. She reminded me of the ones my meme would collect that were porcelain. When meme offered to make us doll clothes for our 3 that we had, I actually chose to leave Samantha at her house for like a few weeks because I couldn't part with Addie, which says a lot because Samantha has always been one of my favorites, and I got even more into her when I was like 12, 13. This is Colleen's second American Girl, Josefina, who we renamed Isabella.
I got from my report card. I think that I felt pressure to like her because I was really into Spanish and her family speaks Spanish. So I don't think it was really that I connected with her, or really that I was even that interested with her. I kind of got her for all the wrong reasons. I gave her to Shelly. She has a chip on her nose because one night the cat we had knocked a fan on top of her face. Remember when I just had her and Molly, I would have like tea parties with them. But I definitely think of her as Shelly's doll, like 100%.
Yeah, I was jealous. I was really mad when you decided to get her. And I remember
Because I was being a hypocrite. I told you.
stalking her from my bunk bed because I could see into Colleen's room at night, and I'd watch her like play with Molly and Josefina, and I was like, how could she pick boring Molly over Josefina? So I was really excited to get her when Colleen finally gave her to me, but she hadn't taken good care of her wig, and she had the chip on her nose, and she lost a bunch of pieces of her like accessories. And then I was fixing her up because I was into like doll restoration around that time, like my own version. I didn't have the internet, so I didn't do it the right way, but I was making strides to do it. And I left her on the bottom bunk, and my dog Skippy, he was a puppy at the time, this was like right after Mom died because Skippy was really young. He ate one of her feet. So I had to buy one on eBay and replace it when we got back into collecting dolls in 2012. I still think she's the prettiest of my Josefina dolls. She's got like perfect coloring, and she doesn't have wonky eyes like Rosalita. Felicity and Kirsten, they are a duo. We got them for Christmas 1998. Felicity was my gift. Kirsten was Colleen's. And I was like, we should finish up the historical collection because I'm like a doll polygamist. I really like them all, and I wanted like her because she was like Little House on the Prairie. I used to love those books. And Felicity, I love colonial things. Like historically, colonial clothes are some of my favorite. So I talked Colleen into getting Kirsten, and we saved them till the very last gift, and we opened them at the very same time. Now, because Colleen didn't really want Kirsten a whole lot, Felicity got played with a lot more, and she's not in the best shape for that reason. Like, I hide it pretty well on my dolls, but the camera can't pick up on all of her imperfections. But like, she has like a scratch on her face, and her body is stained because I used to take her in the woods. I took her to a boat show one time. I actually still have the ticket stub because my dad was really into like the ocean and fishing and stuff, and we went to a boat show with her parents.
I didn't really play with Kirsten like Shelly said, but I do have like memories of her in a nightgown, like an old nightgown that Meme made, making her like walk around the kitchen. I ended up like losing interest by like a year later in having other dolls besides Molly. And I'm ashamed to admit that I stuffed Isabella, Valerie, and Kirsten behind my mirror in the bedroom I was living in downstairs at the time when I was in 7th grade, and Shelly actually rescued Kirsten. I let Shelly have Kirsten. I at some point actually forgot that Kirsten was mine because Shelly was the one who wanted her in the beginning to begin with. Like, it was Shelly who wanted the doll in the house, and Shelly who played with her, and Shelly who like rebraided her hair and made her look nice. Honestly, Kirsten is like in really nice shape, which is why in 2016 we sent her away for her silver eye, which I never did for Molly because Molly and I were so connected that's like the face that I know, and it's been like that since I want to say 97. Whereas Kirsten, I didn't spend that much time with her, so I don't know when her eye went silver.
She looked like a cyborg.
There was another office Mom used to clean, and my strongest memories of Shelley playing with Carson are actually when we used to eat picnic lunch outside the other office.
We'd bring our catalogs and I'd fantasize about what I wanted to buy her. First two Girl of Today dolls, Angela, who is GT3, and Valerie, who's GT16. We didn't get them together, but they came in pretty close succession. So I got Angela for Christmas 1999, and Colleen's plan had been to get Valerie for Christmas 1999, but then she, for some reason, backed out of it. I remember we wanted to dabble in the Girl of Today line, and the reason we chose these two is because she kind of looked like Samantha. That's why you wanted her, right?
Yes.
And then I chose her because she was featured in a lot of the spreads.
And we would like sit for hours making up stories about like if we had the dolls, what they were wearing.
If you didn't know, the old Girl of Today dolls came with blank books that you were supposed to fill out yourself and write stories and draw illustrations yourself. Already had it like well pre-planned what we wanted them to do, and they were, I think, sisters in our stories.
Yes.
You got Valerie for your birthday in February of 2000.
I had all this hype surrounding her, and then I was really disappointed. And I remember that night I picked up Molly and sang Shania Twain's You're Still the One to her. And that's when I decided to be the Molly monogamist and that I just wasn't interested in the other dolls anymore. I named her for Valerie Tripp, the author of Molly and Samantha's books. Poor Valerie sat behind my mirror for longer than any of the other
I always
dolls.
was kind of like CPS almost. Like, I would tell Colleen she was like abusing her dolls, and because I always wanted people's unwanted dolls, and I'd be like, it's not nice. They have feelings. So that's how I adopted her, and I have to say I love this outfit she's wearing, and I made some Morris earrings, which are so tacky, but they go with the theme. Then we have Bitty Baby. She was a report card gift in 2001 when I was in 4th grade. I always really wanted a Bitty Baby, and before I had a real one, I would get like those fake baby dolls, and I'd pretend they were Bitty Baby, and I'd like name them Bitty, because she was kind of marketed for younger kids. When I had my chance to get my first American Girl, I wanted like the big girl version, you know? I was like, no, I need to be equal with Colleen. I need like a real deal. My Bitty Baby was my one true love. I took her everywhere with me. I had like a real diaper bag, real bottles. I remember I spent like most of my vacation money one year on stuff for Bitty Baby. And I have this one really vivid memory of the last time we went vacationing with Mom and Dad when Mom was alive. And me and Dad went to a store to get something for dinner at the campground, and I had Bitty Baby with me, and I had like all of her stuff, and he said, one day you're gonna make a really good mom because you love your doll so much. I love her, and she's really discolored, which you can't see because when I would get stressed as a kid, and I kind of still do this as an adult, I would like scrub the crap out of my favorite dolls because I'd like think that they were dirty even if I just cleaned them. So I used like things like Brillo pads on her, and I think that caused her to discolor, which is really a shame, but I love her anyways.
From here on out, I just want to say that this is when Shelley started getting dolls, but I was still getting stuff for Molly.
Yeah.
Which is why the dolls stop. It's not like my parents weren't spending equal on me and just on American Girl, but just on stuff for Molly.
Yeah, I don't mean to hog the video. It's just I liked more dolls than you.
Oh, well, I didn't want people to think that, Mom and Dad loved you more, which is why I stopped getting dolls. I just want to make that clear.
No, you just had more refined, like, focused taste. I was like, new doll, I want it. My Josefina doll that I got growing up, I got it for my birthday in 2002, and as I mentioned on Isabella, Colleen hadn't taken very good care of her. Like, she wasn't very gentle with her dolls in general, and I really, really, really loved the character, and at that point I had been reading her books, and I related to her personality and her interests, and also her mother had passed away in her stories, and my mom was going through a battle with cancer at the time, and I mean, as a little kid I had internalized that my mom probably wasn't going to live because of how serious things were, so she was like really close to my heart, and my dad actually convinced my mom to let me get her for my 11th birthday because he had two brothers growing up, so he knew what it was like getting hand-me-downs and stuff, and he said that I should be able to get my own Josefina doll, and Mom finally relented, even though she didn't see a point in having two of the same doll in the house. boy, what she'd think now. And I got her for my 11th birthday, and that was actually one of my last memories with Mom, because she went to the hospital not long after that and passed away. And I actually didn't get to see her when she went to the hospital the last time, because my dad didn't want me to see her on life support. So Josefina is really close to my heart, and I used to spend hours talking to her at night, like she was my confidant, like my friend. And even as a teenager, when I wasn't collecting dolls anymore, I would always pull her out from my American Girl cabinets and like hold her, because she made me feel better. She's like my friend. She's definitely my most sentimental doll in my whole collection. Amber, she's GT2. I got her for Christmas 2002. That was my first Christmas after Mom passed away. And even though I like loved Josefina a lot, I just thought having another American Girl would somehow like make me feel better. So I randomly picked her. They didn't have a lot of selection back then, which is why all the dolls look pretty much the same with like just different hair and eye colors. I remember taking her to our uncle's house. That was the first year we didn't have Christmas at our house because Dad didn't want to hold it without Mom. And it was a terrible Christmas. Dad's back window of his pickup had gotten broken from a branch in a storm. So we
rode there with like cardboard behind us in the truck.
And then it was like, really weird having Christmas at someone else's house. And then Dad fell down there icy steps, and they had like steps. Dad fell. It was just awful, and for a long time I didn't really connect with Amber, but as an adult, like looking back, she reminds me of that time. And you know, that kind of small gesture of Dad letting me get an American Girl for Christmas, you know, to make me feel better is something that I've held on to, and she was actually my favorite girl of today for quite some time until Claire and Maya joined the collection. Our three girls from Christmas 2004, we have Molly number 2, Kit, and Samantha number 2.
It was a spendy Christmas.
Yeah, so basically our favorite dolls at the time, like the ones we were playing with the most, we went through this phase where I was really into Samantha and Colin was really into Molly. Our old dolls as kids seemed really, really old, and they were in really beat up shape because we didn't have the skills to fix them.
And the idea had taken formation that summer. I remember we were in the car, and Shelly was saying, because Molly was just like really falling apart. I mean, at some point her leg was off and Dad had bungee corded back together.
The wrong way.
So
she looked like a jelly bean.
Yeah, she was all misshapen.
Samantha was too.
She was a mess, and I remember Shelly and I were talking about the car, and Shelly said, "Oh, well, you could replace her head like I did with Addie." And I said, "Oh, but you know, her legs was falling off." And then Shelly said, "Or you could probably replace the body." I'm like, "Well, half her hair is missing." And Dad said, "I think Molly needs to be jacked up and have a new doll replaced." And I said, "Well, you're kind of right." And our eyes met in the rearview mirror, and he said that if I wanted, only if I was ready, he would get me another Molly for Christmas that year if I still wanted to by Christmas. So that was when that took formation. I think Shelly got jealous and wanted to get another Samantha.
Well, especially because I was obsessed with things being perfect
right,
at the time.
and Sam wasn't perfect.
I didn't have the skills to like fix up my old doll, and I mean I was like really hung up on every like little hair that was out of place. So
I mean, next to Molly, I just want to say your old Sam was perfect.
Yeah, I know. I was jealous, and I wanted to get Samantha, but I'd been planning on getting Kit for a while. I liked Kit when she came out because she had short hair, and that was like a really unique feature for the time, and she had freckles.
And you had short hair at the time.
I cut my hair to look like hers. I didn't have it at the time. I cut it to look like hers. I also had braces at the time, which is why Kit has the stick-on braces from the bubble robe. And I was reading her books, and the Great Depression was an era of history that really interested me, and even later on in high school I wrote a paper on the Great Depression because of Kit. I couldn't decide between Kit and Samantha, and then last minute I said I'll get Samantha and I'll get more clothes for my Samantha, and that way old Samantha, aka Luca, can share them too. Then I had this like regret, and I like cried about it to Colleen, and I was like really dramatic at the time. I'd like write love notes to my dolls. I was weird, okay? I was projecting a lot of my personal issues onto the dolls. So Colleen told Dad, and then he said I could get Kit too because that was his way of compensating for everything.
Which, speaking of compensating and Dad trying to keep things equal between us, he bought me Molly's trunk because he bought her another doll.
Yes, I love Kit. She's one of my favorite dolls because she reminds me of like kind of a better time in my life, because the year before I was in a really, really bad depression. Like, I mean, I struggled my whole life with that, like, looking back, but, you know, after Mom died, it really hit me, and I was, like, having really dark thoughts and stuff, and I remember I was kind of feeling some relief from that, and Kit kind of symbolizes that to me. I haven't talked about it before because it's like kind of a hard time to talk about, but I remember I was really excited because in 8th grade, the play that they would put on every year for the 8th graders happened to be Robin Hood, and that was Kit's favorite book, and I was super excited because I got chosen to help work on the set and like paint the castle scene. I think of 8th grade, I always think of Kit because of that. But I really loved my new Samantha too. She was like my perfect China doll, and I tried to keep her as perfect as possible, and I always think of my Uncle David when I look at her because I opened Kit before Christmas. Dad let us open these two a few weeks before Christmas when all the packages came, but I saved her for Christmas, and I remember we had family over that year, and Uncle David was like, oh, you must really like that doll because she's with you all the time. And we also had a sleepover in the living room on an air mattress that night, and Samantha got to be part of it. Me and Colleen had to sleep over that night. I have Kaya. I call her Kia, so please pardon that. That was how I mispronounced it as a kid. I loved her when she came out. I thought she was like the one time period that they really needed to include into the collection. And Dad would always say that too, which made me want a Native American even more because he said you couldn't get any more American than a Native American doll. And I loved learning about Native American culture as a kid. I remember I had like this sheet of Native American symbols, and I still remember what some of them were because I'd practiced them over and over again. So I was really in love with Kia and her story, and like I just think Native American culture in general is really beautiful. I got her for my Good Report card in 2005, in May of 2005. Usually I didn't get dolls for report cards. That was like a once in a while thing, but Dad knew how badly I wanted her, and I was completely in love with her when she arrived. And I remember I'd like put her on my bike and take her for bike rides with me, and Dad actually bought her a dress he picked out. The only outfit he ever surprised me with was an outfit for Kaya when I was growing up. So that really meant the world to me because she was the one doll he could always pick out of a lineup. He only knew her and Addie. The rest he didn't know from holes in the wall.
I would hope he would know Molly, but
I don't know about that. Then we have Marisol, Girl of the Year 2005. She was the very last doll I had that we both got, I think, as kids.
Yep.
I got her for Christmas 2005. First came out, I thought she was the most beautiful thing ever because she was so unique looking with her really long hair and the side part, and I loved her tan skin. I remember going to Barnes & Noble with Dad and buying her book, and I fell in love with the story. I was sort of phasing out of dolls by that time, by like the beginning of my freshman year of high school. 2 weeks before Christmas, I finally caved, and I was like, I really have to get her because she's limited edition, and she was the very last one in the country available in the warehouse. Dad called to order her, and they had to send a worker down to the warehouse to make sure that there really was one Marisol Luna doll in there. And at that point, they only had like a few of her accessory sets and one outfit available because everything else had sold out. She was my prized gem. I loved her. I displayed her even as a teenager. My American Girls were the only dolls I kept in my room when I wasn't into dolls anymore. So now we're on to dolls that we got as adult collectors. So these were all purchased from 2011 to present day because we took a 5-year break from doll collecting altogether. This was my very first secondhand American Girl. I got Keisha, who was a bitty baby doll, in the fall of 2011 outside this flea market we used to go to all the time with Dad. It was actually the same flea market Colleen bought a lot of her Harry Potter stuff from. And I saw this bitty baby doll on the table. She was wearing a really disgusting sleeper. She didn't have a diaper on. She had tons of scuffs all over the back of her head, and she was just really gross looking. And I felt so bad because of how much I loved my childhood bitty baby. So Dad bought her for me. She was $10. We have our second adult purchased American Girls, Josefina, aka Rosalita, and Molly. We got them together at an indoor flea market probably a month or two after we found Keisha. Dad had been out visiting one of his friends who set up at this flea market, and when he came home, he told me that he really wanted me to go to the flea market with him because there were some Wizard of Oz dolls, and at the time I was kind of like collecting those specifically. He did not mention that there were American Girls, and the person who sold the Wizard of Oz dolls had all this American Girl stuff. And later Pleasant Company, early Mattel type dolls are like hybrids, and they were pretty inexpensive at $35 each with like their whole meat outfits. And parts of their accessory sets or their whole accessory sets depending on the doll. I really wanted Rosalita over here because she was wearing part of her accessory set and she looked a lot like Isabel, whereas my 2002 Josefina has like much tanner skin for some reason, and her hair at the time was still trashed, and then my other doll had a chewed foot at the time. So I decided to get Rosalita, and she was sold with her bed, and then Colleen wanted this Molly.
And this Molly looks a lot like my childhood Molly did, like, because, you know, there are subtle differences. This doll's obviously, like, later 90s, like my childhood doll, I can tell. She is definitely, in my opinion, my best-looking Molly. Shelley names her doubles, but I just call them all, they're all Molly McIntyre to me.
I thought it was really special because these are our two favorite historical characters, and it was really cool to get them together. And then we have Miss Jelly. She is a really old Bitty Baby doll. I always wanted, like, a really old Pleasant Company style Bitty Baby, because I wanted the one that sold in like the original sleeper that I used to see in catalogs, because when I got my Bitty Baby, that was right after they changed the sleepers. I saw her at this flea market, our local flea market. This guy had a bunch of American Girls all in really bad shape, and most of them didn't even have their outfits, but they had like extra clothes for them. I thought about getting like the Bitty Baby doll, but then I was like, I don't really need another one, and we came back the next weekend and he actually bundled Jelly with all the Bitty Baby clothes he had. And she was disgusting. Like, her face was so greasy. There was so much grease on it. She was filthy. She had like chocolate milk stains, I think, all over her clothes. It was gnarly. She was like $50 for everything, which was a pretty good deal because she had like her diaper bag, a few outfits. We have Nellie O'Malley, Samantha's best friend. She's a really significant doll in our collection because she's the reason, as I've said in all of my American Girl collection videos, that we got really back into them, and all of the dolls in this row and the next ones you'll be seeing are here because of Nellie. So I remember when Nellie came out, I thought it was like an interesting gimmick, but I wasn't really sold on like wanting the Nellie doll. You know, I mean, I wanted every American Girl, so there was like that passing fancy, but I never thought I'd actually get her. And it was July 2014, we were at the local flea market, and we were at the top of this hill, and looking down at the hill where there were people set up, I could see Nellie standing up. She was not in her meat outfit. She was actually in a Samantha dress, and I could only see like the top of her head, and I knew right away who it was, and for some reason I was really excited, and I was like, Nellie! This poor doll had Sharpie underneath her eyes. Her wig had been cut, like in her bangs, you can see it. Her hair was all messed up. Her limbs were so loose that when you picked her up, they'd flop. She was greasy and filthy and stinky. Sellers let us have her for half off at $25.
Which is actually what they paid for her.
Yeah, because they just, they knew that she was in really bad shape. I bought her, and I just became so obsessed in American Girl after that. It like reignited that fire that I once had as a kid. I could send her in for a head replacement, but I really like to restore things as opposed to just replace things, and I knew like I could get rid of the stains easily and even out the wig and all that. So she's not perfect looking by any means, but she's my Nellie. As a consequence of finding Nellie, I ended up with Ivy and Julie within 2 weeks because
Summer 2014.
this was when they were retiring all of the best friend dolls. Kind of ironic, right? That I got my first best friend, and then I found out they were discontinuing the best friends because they were going to relaunch For Be Forever. At first I thought, are they discontinuing like the main characters too? Like, is Julie going away because they're getting rid of Ivy? Because obviously Cecile and Marie Grace are both going away. I realized quickly that Julie was not retiring, but I had always kind of admired Ivy. So she came out in 2007. And even though I wasn't collecting dolls, we would still get American Girl catalogs because we had been such good customers for so long that, you know, we'd get catalogs, and I would secretly look at them when I'd come home from school before anybody could see. And I remember when Julie came out, I really liked her collection, and I thought it was so cool that they gave her an Asian best friend, and I loved Ivy's name, and she's just so adorable.
So I guess it wasn't pointless of them to send you the catalog, because years later it stuck with you.
So Ivy, I ended up ordering her kind of as like a birthday gift to myself, and I ordered her directly from American Girl, and it was kind of like a really big test because you know, you hear a lot of like trash talking about American Girls, and it's kind of apprehensive, but when Ivy came, it felt exactly the same as opening up a doll as a kid, and because of that experience, that definitely opened up the door to getting into other new American Girls that were newer and after our time. And she's still, I like her better than Julie. I still feel that way even all these years later. But I got Julie on eBay. We had gotten an eBay gift card. This Julie doll came in a lot with her pajamas and her accessory set, and she had barely been played with. She was still in really good condition. Her wig just needed a little bit of work, and I thought she was such a great bargain. She was like less than retail, especially if you factor in the clothes that she had. So I decided it would be really cool to get her too. And I absolutely love Julie. She's one of my favorites, and I made her these really cool earrings to go with this birthday dress. It's like resin, and that's like bits of paper and sequins in there. And I love the 70s style because I love Barbies from the 70s. I think like the clothes are really tacky, but in like a cool, iconic way.
And I want to say that I knew Shelly harbored a interest in Julie all those years we weren't collecting, because Shelly talked about Julie a lot right when we got into dolls. I knew she really wanted Julie, and I knew she wanted Ivy too, but I think she was more expressive about Julie, even though I know she wanted both.
Isabel Palmer, Girl of the Year 2014. She's the only doll I bought in an American Girl store, because in our state that store closed several years ago, and it was so far away, and like we had to take toll roads and stuff, that it wasn't really worth the drive. But I decided to get Isabel because I was bored. I remember it was like the day before Thanksgiving in 2014, and I decided to watch Isabel's movie on YouTube because somebody had uploaded it, and I just really resonated with the story behind Isabel. It made me really want the doll and to like read the books. We went to the store, and I kind of talked calling into doing it in a subtle way. I was like, oh, I don't know if like they'll all be sold out of Isabel.
I called the store ahead of time to check.
And they had tons of Isabels. Like, I was overwhelmed, which is another reason why I'd rather just order them online, because one of the reasons I really wanted her was because she has this like cool pink hair extension, which now they sell dolls with rooted colorful hair, but back then that was like iconic. That was a new feature. And I love colorful hair, obviously, as I have it myself.
I remember being in the car with her, and I was putting her like jacket on in the car because it's cold and I'm playing her in the car.
These are our 80s white-bodied, made in Germany American Girls. We have Molly and Samantha. We got them both during the summer of 2015, but it had been something we had talked about since we learned of white-bodied dolls, like in 2011.
I want to say I'd always wanted a white-body Molly right from hearing that, just because. So my backstory with my original Molly books is that my grandparents worked at a Salvation Army, and some of my copies were actually first editions. So to know that this is the doll that like was out when my book was new, like it meant something to me, so I really wanted her right along. But it just kind of one night randomly, Shelly pointed out they weren't as expensive as we thought, and she found the listing for this doll, and at first I want to say she was more enthusiastic than I was. I ordered her within like 2 days. Of course, Shelly knowing I was getting a white body doll,
I had to get one too. So I also want to say that like this Molly was less than one of those anniversary dolls. Colleen got a real white body doll for $140.
Now, granted, she was, I mean,
horrible shape.
The pictures on Flickr do not do justice. I want to say Shelly put at least 10 hours that I can count into working on this doll.
10 or 15, I know.
She needed a lot of work. And, you know, when she first came in the mail, I realized that Shelly was right, that she really didn't look that different from my Molly.
No.
And also, she was in much worse condition than the listing pictures showed. And it wasn't the seller's fault. You would look at my before photos on Flickr and not realize how much work we put into her. I was kind of disappointed, but instead of acting that way, I just tried to roll with it. And as a consequence, I actually, she was my second favorite until Shelly got me my Be Forever Molly a few years later, so.
And I always liked the white-bodied Samanthas because I feel like Samantha, of all of the, German dolls compared to more modern renditions, I feel like Samantha has the most variation because her wig is so much lighter. It's actually quite a bit longer, and her eyes are like a slightly different color, and she's got these beautiful long lashes, whereas Molly's aren't as long. So for that reason, I had a very specific image of which kind of white body doll I want, because there's different variations, like I said. So when I found her for And she was like $100.
She was like $89, wasn't she?
Yeah, she ended up being like a little over $100 with shipping.
Tax and shipping, yeah. She was cheap.
Yeah, so she was less than a brand new doll, and she was in really nice condition. She needed some work, but like you would expect that. And she had part of her accessory set. Actually took them to the American Girl store.
Yeah, I put them both in their Saves the Day outfits, and the Jeep was being like really crazy.
It's called the
wobbly,
death wobble.
Clinging to Molly for dear life.
Your steering locks up and you bounce all the way down the highway, and then you have to slow down to get it to unlock. Anyways, that was my old Jeep. Her eye has this like fluttery thing where it flutters on its own sometimes.
Oh, yeah, her eye was going wild in the Jeep because of the death wobble.
And I've had people tell me she's ugly for on Flickr, which I don't care. Like, if you think a doll is ugly, like, it's no skin off my back, as Reba would say. But like, she does have like weirdly placed eyes in her sockets, but I still think she's the most exotic of all my Samantha dolls. We're on to 3 dolls that we got clustered in November, December of 2015. We have Elizabeth, Emily, and my second Addie doll, my Be Forever Addie, named Duke. So I remember that right around Thanksgiving, I had ordered Nellie her holiday dress on eBay. Like, I finally found a good deal for it. And when it came in the mail, Colleen was like really jealous.
And I'd always wanted Emily. I mean, when we were kids, I would pretend that Meme's porcelain doll, who I hung on to all these years because of it, was Emily. Molly, Happy Birthday Molly was my favorite book when I was really little. It was kind of sad for me that they didn't put her out until like right after we went on the doll hiatus. So I kind of knew, I always knew deep down that I was going to crack and get her. But it was a combination of Nellie's holiday outfit and the fact that we'd found the Molly movie at the flea market. You know, Shelly's like, if you give us a cookie, she'd always really wanted Elizabeth.
Yes.
And you probably would have ordered her if you hadn't gone Marisol for 05.
Yeah, maybe. that was the plan, yeah. So I was torn between Elizabeth and Marisol. I have always maintained that if I hadn't so desperately wanted Marisol, I would have gotten Elizabeth. But since I got Marisol, if we never stopped collecting dolls, Christmas 2006, Dad would have bought us Emily and Elizabeth. We got Emily on eBay for about retail price. She even had her box and everything. And then I wanted to get Elizabeth, and Elizabeth was a really great deal because she had her accessory set and her holiday outfit and her meet outfit. So I ended up getting her for like less than retail if you priced all those things out. So you can find really good deals. I'm only mentioning this because I think a lot of people think retired dolls are like insanely expensive. But if you know how to shop and you're patient and you have some ability to fix them up, you can get them for cheaper than retail. Like,
and I wouldn't say either Emily or Elizabeth was like a train wreck either. They were pretty decent.
Elizabeth's pin curls were all
that was the only
like
thing.
I still can't find the other one. I think it might have been cut off. But a Duke, she was brand new. So they ran a sale right around Cyber Monday-ish, like where all the dolls were 20% off or something. And I'd always dabbled with getting a second Addie because my original Addie, before I replaced her head as a kid, I thought maybe I should just get another Addie doll. But then I got her head replaced instead, and when they came out with Be Forever Addie, they changed like the eyebrows, and this doll in particular has like a warm skin tone. She has like a red undertone as opposed to like a blue cool gray undertone, which makes her look more like alive and vibrant. And I fell in love with like Be Forever Addie's slight differences.
And we'd actually been kidding around over the summer of 2015 because they had that, remember that raffle they were doing for Be Forever? And I was entering it online like every day. It was like to get a doll, and I was like, oh, if we win, maybe we should get Rebecca, because I like secretly wanted Rebecca at the time. And Shelly was like, or maybe I could get a second Addie like I've always wanted. So it was like, it started as a joke, and then we actually ended up buying ourselves one when she went on sale.
Yeah, and so that's why I got her. Now, if I hadn't had my heart set on getting Addie, when they ran that sale, I would have gotten Grace, because at this point Grace had really caught my attention. So when she initially came out, she was right after Isabel, so she's Girl of the Year 2015, and I was kind of salty because I loved Isabel so much. I was sad to see her go, and I thought the like Parisian baking thing was like super cheesy and overdone. But after like seeing a lot of pictures of her, and back then I would sometimes watch doll YouTube. I don't anymore, but like back then I did. I thought that she was really special because at the time, the dolls, again, there wasn't as much like variety, and she had like these really beautiful thick eyebrows and these dewy looking lips, and her wig has these pretty highlights in them, and it's like a kind of longer wig. I thought she was gorgeous, and I had thought about getting her on that sale, but because I already had an Addie, it's not like I wanted to pay like full price for another Addie doll, and I wanted to get one brand new because this wig does not age well. So I ended up getting Grace on eBay in like February of 2016, and the person who bought her and sold her must have gotten her on that sale because she was like retail price. Like it was like exactly what Grace cost in the catalog, like all said and done. So it was really great because she was boxed, she was sealed, never had been taken out, and so it was like getting her from American Girl, just not on sale.
And Shelly always said anytime she looked at pictures of Grace, I remember ogling Grace at the mall outlet when we went that summer, Shelly always said that Grace was a work of art.
I do. I think she's a work of art. And that is why I liked Lindsay so much, because as you can see, Girl of the Year 2001 Lindsay has kind of a similar look with the blue eyes, freckles, and brown hair. Now, the funny thing about Lindsay is that, you know, there's not a lot of dolls that, like, I will point blank say I don't want, because I am, like, a doll junkie. I love them all. Like, even if I don't like something, I can talk myself into it in, like, 15 minutes that I need this doll or I'm going to die, because I just love dolls so much. But I had a friend growing up who had Lindsay, and then another friend later on in life who asked me to fix up their sister's Lindsay doll, and neither time I had felt anything for Lindsay. So I thought I was kind of immune to her. I saw her at the flea market on opening day 2016, and she was standing on a table wearing her full meat outfit, and immediately it was like seeing a celebrity. I ran over there. I'm like, oh, it's Lindsay. And she was $75, so she's probably, I think she's the most expensive one we've ever bought, like, in person at the flea market. But that was really a good price for her, considering she looked much nicer. The other Lindsay dolls I encountered had really bad wigs, and like my friend's dolls, but her wig looked really nice, and
she was really moldy though.
Oh, she was really moldy. Like, that was the only problem, is her limbs were loose and she was super moldy. She had mold stains on her face, on her arms, on her legs, on her clothes, but I knew how to take care of that. You can see pictures of her in my Dolly Transformations album on Flickr, and she's actually featured in my second YouTube video ever, completely apart. I always say this because it's kind of funny. And I ended up walking around to think about it, and then we circled back and bought her before someone else could. I had to go to the ATM. I'm really glad I got her, and the funny thing is, like, I probably like her more than Grace now. Like, I think overall Grace looks more aesthetically pleasing, but Lindsay's more fun to dress. I feel like she dresses better for some reason.
Which is weird, because Grace is like the more beautiful doll when you're looking at them. It's weird, but I agree Lindsay's a better dresser.
And I love her in this particular outfit with the sprinkle resin earrings I made. Yes, Girl of the Year 2006.
We were on Girl of the Year fever.
Yeah, after I got Lindsay, I'm like, well, if I can like one of the Girl of the Years I never thought I'd like, then why not buy a Girl of the Years that I always did like? Now, Jess came out right after Marisol, and so I was still getting catalogs, and I loved that they introduced an Asian character. She was really excited. I loved her meat outfit with the orange dress and the sandals and her like tropical theme, because I've always been a sucker for beach dolls, and I probably would have wanted to get her too if I had stayed into American Girls, but I ended up finding her on eBay for, again, like less than retail. And I remember we had to message the seller because they didn't show or mention her underwear. I remember that she came in the mail the day we went with my friend Lisa to get her first tattoo.
Oh yeah!
And I would have filmed opening her, but I wanted to make sure to open the package and make sure she was there, but because like Lisa was with us, I didn't want to, you know, be a weirdo and like film YouTube, and you know, I mean, she's not a doll collector, so I wasn't gonna go like bother her with a doll. I just wanted to check and make sure that Jess was there, and so I could leave the seller feedback, and she's actually one of my absolute favorites in my collection.
Okay, so I contest that Jess is Shelly's favorite. I've told Shelly this 100 times. She is obsessed in the Jess. That is like the joke. I'm like, we were watching something one time online, and I said, oh, they're just getting rid of their collection because they can't be bothered to unpack. But here that wouldn't happen because you would miss Jess too much. You would have to unpack like right away if we moved. Shelly is obsessed in Jess.
I am.
Jess is her favorite.
And I keep her like in a part of my room where I can see her when I wake up in the morning.
She's obsessed with Jess.
I really like her for some reason. I don't know why. I'm just like obsessed with her, and I probably like think about her the most and miss her the most.
Exactly. That's why I'm always saying she's your favorite.
Another favorite of mine though is Caroline. I think that she is so stunningly beautiful, and she has one of the coolest collections because I really love the more old-fashioned looking outfits, like the kind of pioneer feeling ones. I remember when Caroline came out, I got catalogs and I thought it was kind of boring that they did another blonde doll, but she has these really fascinating eyes. I kind of always put it in like my bank of like dolls I might want one day. And then when they retired her, I did consider purchasing her in 2015, like going to the store, but I didn't want to feel cornered into like buying all of her outfits and spending all of that money, and we really wanted the White-bodied dolls, so I ended up not getting her, and I got her a year later. She's my first doll I ever opened on camera, which I don't really do anymore, but I did open her on camera in 2016. I got her as a birthday gift. Colleen actually got her for me. I got her and she was in really bad shape. You can see in that video, and I used her in my flat iron tutorial. Her hair was completely frizzed up from root to tip, and she needed like the whole works. Her skin was dirty and her outfit had stains on it, but the person who sold her to me had said that she was very loved by their daughter, and I really resonated with that. And the baldness on her wig was like how my Josefina doll's hair got frizzy and thin because I combed it so much. So she reminds me, whoever had her before loved her like how I loved my Josefina or my Addie doll. So it's extra special knowing that backstory, and I really like how she's one of the older ones and has the blonde eyebrows, because when they redid Be Forever, even though she didn't change outfits, they did make her eyebrows brown, which is cool. And I love Caroline. And then my next doll was Maya. She is a My American Girl number 41. I thought she was a My American Girl number 25 when I saw her boxed at the flea market, which is why I bought her. So the funny story is that Maya used to be advertised in a lot of the catalogs, and I ended up putting one of her pictures of her with the hot dog cart on my like recipe book, because I decorate everything. If you watch my videos, you know I like to make collages and decorate notebooks, and I had this recipe book because I'd recently gone vegetarian, filled with like vegetarian recipes, and she was on that cover, but I didn't like the doll.
You liked the part.
It was kind of like this weird, almost like people who believe in those like vision boards, like
yeah,
it comes true. So we walked in the flea market that day, and she was at one of the first booths, and she still had her wig cap on and stuff, so I couldn't tell it was curly, and she was only $50, and we were supposed to go to this really big outdoor flea market with a friend of ours the next day, so I was kind of apprehensive about spending that money because we were going the next day to a different flea market, but I'm glad we bought her because we ended up not finding much of anything at the other one.
No, it was a bust.
But the weird thing about the day we got Maya is it was like a whole thing at the flea market. There was actually somebody brought a gun to the flea market.
Yeah, there was like this weird squabble over parking.
Yeah, I don't know. You never know when you meet people, like what they're going through and what they're capable of, but I guess there was some argument about parking from what I overheard, and someone pulled a gun, and so the police officer who usually is like the crossing guard was not there, and there was this weird vibe, and then you could see all these police cruisers and some guy
Shelley
getting
was
arrested.
carrying Maya, and I was carrying our Barbie hot tub party bus.
Then we have Gwen. She is a hopscotch hill doll, which they kind of are like the predecessors to the Welly Wishers. They have these articulated bodies that are known for going limp, and they're nearly impossible to restring, which is why she's sitting this way. So I got her for $2 at the Salvation Army. She's in one of my haul videos from 2017. I got her at the beginning of 2017, and I immediately recognized her. She was not wearing any American Girl clothes, but I used to admire her in the catalog because I love dolls with two braids, and when I saw her, I just had to buy her, and we ended up purchasing her,
and I had
the outfit on eBay.
on the brain because someone at work had mentioned Hopscotch Hill to me in the passing not that long before because they thought they were like rare or valuable, and I looked on eBay and I'm like, where are they getting that from?
Yes, so we bought her outfit on eBay, but she actually can kind of fit Welly Wisher clothes. She's like longer, but she fits this one, which works out really well. Then we have Marie Grace. I remember, again, when Marie and Cecile came out, I could not get my head around like the concept of like a shared collection, that there wasn't like a dominant character, and I didn't know why they didn't just make Cecile the character that was the main one. I didn't know why they even had Marie Grace because I just thought she was another boring like blondish looking doll. But I used to see Marie Grace is getting taken apart for customs all the time because she has her own head mold, and people really liked this head mold back then. And it made me feel really bad and kind of like gross and icky when I'd see her parted out on eBay. So I ended up getting this like sympathy, and I would always check American Girl after Cecile sold out to see if they were going to mark down Marie Grace, but they never did.
And she was like, it took her for months to sell out.
So during the summer of 2017, I had kind of been like browsing eBay hoping to find a deal.
I actually had some watch lists.
Yeah, but we were really broke, so I knew that it wasn't really sensible to buy an American Girl, and I had wanted Cecile more than Marie Grace, so it kind of made sense to like just wait. But we were at the flea market one day, and lo and behold, there was Marie Grace.
It was like
in a box.
literally the day after I'd watched Liz's song.
I know, it was freaky how that worked out. She had part of her accessory set was stuck back inside her box, and the story behind her was that the man had bought her for his daughter, and she never really played with she just sat on the shelf and collected dust, and he decided to sell her, and I think she was $45. I do have a transformation video of her, and there was this little boy that followed us around the flea market because he really liked Marie Grace.
Marie.
And so I opened up the box and let him look at her because, you know, she needed to be cleaned up anyways. And beginning of 2018, at the same Salvation Army that we got Gwen at, which has now since closed because of the pandemic, I spotted this Samantha doll sitting in the toy section, and at first I thought she was just a Girl of Today doll, but then Samantha has special eyes. I was like, oh, that's Samantha. She looks a lot like my first Samantha I had as a kid, and I didn't need her,
But she was only $2, and we were weak.
And so I kind of walked around holding her in the store, and finally I bought her, and I named her Bethan, and unfortunately, like, when I got her, I was really depressed at the time, so I didn't feel like a real strong connection with her for a while because I was just going through so much that, like, you know, I was over that point in my life of buying dolls to cope with issues. So instead, it was kind of like a numbness I felt about it. So I felt bad because she spent forever sitting on my desk waiting to be photographed, but now we've bonded since, and I really love her. These 3 bitty twins dolls all together at the flea market in June of 2018. There's a haul video and a transformation video on our channel.
They were $1 each.
They were $1 each, which is why I bought the 3 of them. And the interesting part about this haul is that it was the last time we went to the flea market in my old Jeep.
Oh, yeah!
I had at that point, because I bought my uncle's Jeep that he was selling, but I still had to register it and stuff. He dropped it over on, like, a Saturday, so it was in the driveway.
It was very frustrating because we were riding this Jeep that, like, honestly, we could barely get around in it. Will this even make it to the flea market? And here's this perfectly good Jeep that we know runs that we just couldn't use because it wasn't registered yet.
So that was kind of like an interesting thing and something I'll always remember. I liked the Bitty Twins when they came out because they were affiliated with Bitty Baby, but they were boys, and the only like boy American Girls prior to that had been the Our New Babies, which were out before my time, and I thought that they were super cute. And I saw a lot of Bitty Twins over the years at the flea markets. Bitty Babies are the easiest to find where I live anyways, and they're usually the most inexpensive, but I wanted to get them like super cheap or get the exact ones I wanted, so I bought them for $1 each from this seller. And I also got like a mini doll. He had a lot of like American Girl fragments, and he knew that they were American Girls. He was just trying to get rid of them, and they did need some work. Eddie, Billie Jean, and Sunny. Sunny needed the most work. He had some like chipped paint, and he had like some scratches on his eyelid that I had to fix, but I love them. I think they're so cute. Unfortunately, they were discontinued by the time I got my dolls, so I've had trouble getting them clothes like for the boys, so they actually can fit the like truly me boy clothes quite well, even though they're a little bit smaller. And I named Sunny and Eddie after these like make-believe characters I used to play when we were kids. Colleen's Be Forever Molly.
So we were broke, and there were a lot of things tempting me in the new Harry Potter dolls, the Babysitter's Inc. Skipper dolls, but when I found out about Be Forever Molly, something inside me broke, and I was just really bitter and angry all of a sudden that we didn't have money for her. Like, I was obsessed. I was also really mad that she was only at Costco and she wasn't available on the website, and it was just a whole thing, and I was like really, really thinking about her, like dwelling on it every day. Now, we didn't have money, and despite this, Shelly was really nice, and she went looking for a Be Forever Molly for me online, and her plan had been that if that fell through, she was going to get me Rebecca, who was more obtainable at the time, and I already really wanted Rebecca. So Shelly went through the trouble of finding me this Molly, and you paid for her a little bit more than Grace.
How I figured out the prices, the people who bought them at Costco got like discounts, like because they were a package deal. So obviously the resellers were going to mark them up a bit, but if you did the tabulations for how much this pajama would have set would have cost on its own, Molly and then her accessory set, it's exactly like it was like right on the dot of how much I thought she was like worth.
It was a bad Christmas. Our guinea pig Nanea got sick right before the holidays and sadly passed away like a week before the New Year. I mean the Christmas Eve. Shelly wasn't originally going to do our doll gingerbread house photo because we were just both so depressed about Nanea, but because she'd already bought me Molly, she decided, well, I'll give Colleen Molly on Christmas Eve and we'll do the photo anyway.
Yep.
And I got up on Christmas Eve morning thinking I was the best sister in the world because I made Shelly this collage using her own art supplies. But I made her this collage and I thought I was the best sister in the world and I thought I was being really discreet about it. So I woke up feeling like tonight after she goes to bed I'm going to put it out. I come into the kitchen, this giant box that could really only be one thing that I could think of because I knew she was in a bigger box. I was so excited. That's kind of what made my 80s Molly like less of the second banana because this Molly's better.
I liked Melody the year she came out in 2016. I was so excited that they were going to make a character that represented the like civil rights movement and stuff. I saw the like animated pictures of her for Melody's book. I fell in love. I thought she was the cutest thing ever, and so I had it in my head that I wanted her, especially when I saw what her meat outfit was going to look like. But when she came out, I was a little bit surprised that they didn't use Addie's head mold, and because they're expensive, I was like, well, I'd rather buy her when I've had time to think about it. There's no sense in like rushing and buying her right away. Maybe I can get her on sale. So it was 3 years in 2019 when I finally got her, and I actually got her for my birthday, which is funny because I was gonna buy her in 2016 for my birthday if things had panned out differently. And she was from eBay, and the person who had her must have been a collector because she was pristine, and she had her like holiday coat and her holiday dress, and everything looked barely used. Like I didn't even have to wash the stuff. I think she was only like $100 for all of that.
She was a really,
it was
really
an amazing deal.
And that was actually what prompted us to buy her instead of Cecile, even though Shelly had by then wanted Cecile like more for longer.
Mm-hmm. So I absolutely love her, and I love that she has the textured hair like Addie. I wish they used it more because it's just so gorgeous and so fun to play with. So then we have the marvelous Cecile Ray. Obviously, I wanted her before, as I mentioned, with Marie Grace, but because of our being brokenness, I had to wait until 2019. So shortly after getting Melody, I had been looking for Cecile for several months, trying to find one in the price range I wanted to pay. I ended up finding her on eBay, and she had like a brand new accessory set. She had been really gently used. I did like fix her hair and stuff, but it was really easy to coax these curls back into place, and she is absolutely gorgeous. I got her not long after Melody, and I do have an opening video on my channel if you're interested in seeing that. She is so much more beautiful in person than in pictures, and she's gorgeous in pictures, and she's my favorite doll that uses a Sonali head mold. I think it works the best for her, in part because of just how her hair is styled, and then her eye color is really just stunningly beautiful.
I wanted Cecile and Rebecca for so long that at some point I refused to film another collection video without them.
Yes.
Because they were like the dolls we were literally talking about all the time.
They're basically like part of the collection before we had them. Kenna Brooks, Girl of the Year 2012. I have a transformation video of her on my channel. I remember the first time we ever went to an American Girl store. It was around my birthday in 2012, and McKenna was the Girl of the Year at the time. It kind of like was ingrained in my memory from that one time that I saw her in person, and even though I didn't like her theme and I thought that the doll herself was kind of bland, for some reason I like got it in my head that I wanted to find her one day, and I actually been looking at her online, but I happened to find my doll in the early fall of 2019 at our local flea market. The seller that we've gotten quite a few dolls and American Girl items from over the years, she had McKenna, and she was like, what, $20?
Yeah.
and I bought her, and she did need quite a bit of work. Her wig is still not in the best shape. Like, you can see she has like some little shorty bits, so I can't really style her hair up or it looks funny, but I think she's adorable and really beautiful.
And it was also thanks to McKenna that we discovered the use of Mercari, because we needed her meet outfit.
Yes.
And that was where we found one for affordable.
That's how we ended up with Claire.
Wow, perfect segue.
Claire Bear, who is truly me, number 25. Now, Claire is a doll. She is the only girl of today, you know, contemporary nameless non-character doll that I really wanted. I was always more into the characters. This doll was like a character to me, because I remember seeing her all the time when I used to watch doll YouTube back in like 2011, and there was this one particular video that always stuck out in my mind where this girl, she had Julie, and I think that's why I clicked on the video, but she also had number 25, and she called her Claire. So I always thought of her as Claire because I couldn't remember the number, and she was kind of this doll I secretly pined for, and it wasn't until more recently that I had told Colleen I wanted her, and then I showed her pictures and she understood why. We were talking about how she was gonna get Rebecca for Christmas that year, and I had Cecile now, and the collection kind of felt complete. He mentioned, well, I would really love to have number 25, and after I said that, she found this doll on Mercari, and I believe she was from a benefit sale, because she has the X on her bum, and the seller sold her for quite affordable. She was $75.
Yeah, she was really cheap.
Still sealed in her box and everything. I think the reason she got returned was because her eyebrows are super wonky. Like, they don't, on film, they don't show up as bad as they do, but like, thing is pushed this way. And I think it's really cute, and it doesn't bother me, but I guess I can understand why someone would return her for that. Like, to me, that's not being super picky. So then we have Rebecca, who Colleen got for Christmas 2019.
So it all started in 2014 when they rebranded for Be Forever. Rebecca's new outfit just looked so good on her. It was like so, like, it complemented her features really well. So it just made me really notice Rebecca. And I'd always kind of liked Rebecca because, you know, like Shelly, I was still kind of secretly following American Girl, you know, in 2009 when Rebecca came out. And I remember they had like a bookstore. They actually had like a raffle for a Rebecca doll. And I remember hearing the character was Jewish, and I'd had a paper doll from an American Girl magazine named Liana Katz, who was my favorite American Girl paper doll. And she was also of Jewish descent, and she actually had some like cultural clothes from her family's background that were an awful lot like clothes from Rebecca's time period. Secretly liked her, but hadn't really voiced us until Be Forever. And then I remember trying to like suggest to Shelly that she got Rebecca because I wanted Rebecca in the house, like what Shelly did with Kirsten way back in '98. And then Shelly's like, Colleen, if you want Rebecca, get Rebecca. And because of the whole Valerie incident, like, you know, the last time I'd gotten a non-Molly or Emily, I was like, I don't know, maybe I'd regret it. So I waited literally like over 4 or 5 years to get Rebecca. And it turns out I really shouldn't have waited. I mean, if I could go back in time, I would have gotten it earlier, because then I could have gotten some of her things on sale. At the end of the day, it was kind of an important lesson to me that I really had grown up and knew whether or not I really wanted something, and I really was ready.
You got her for Cyber Monday.
Oh yeah, she was our cheapest brand new doll, because at that point,
They lowered the price.
Yeah, they'd like lowered the price of the doll without the accessory
$98.
set. Yeah.
And then they ran a 20% off sale. Lanie, Girl of the Year 2010. Lanie was actually a gift. I did not buy Lanie myself. And the backstory behind her is that she was rescued from a Goodwill. Yeah, she was wearing her meat dress and her underwear, but she didn't have her shoes. And she was in really bad shape. I have a transformation video on her, and I also used her for my curl tutorial. And the funny thing is, with Lanie, I never liked Lanie in the catalog.
It was like the Lindsay effect.
Yeah, I thought she was kind of boring, and her collection was lame because I didn't really spend a lot of time looking at her. I don't remember seeing her in the catalog specifically, but later on online when I was researching American Girls, I remember being, go Lanie. That was our nickname
That was
for her.
our joke, Lanie.
And then as soon as I opened up the box she was in,
Her eyes lit up.
I was like, it's Lanie. because it was like seeing a celebrity, and it was immediate love. And the cool thing about my Lanie doll is she's one of the last ones to have these bright green eyes, because in 2010 the year Lanie came out, the first ones that were produced had these eyes, but then they discontinued these eyes and switched to the ones Rebecca has. I actually really do love Lanie's collection. As you can see, she's wearing one of her
That's one of my favorite outfits.
That's my favorite outfit of hers. Lanie is really into science, and fun fact about me,
And animals.
And animals, which you may or may not know. Science was one of the subjects in school I really excelled at. I didn't like it. I liked English class a lot and did really well in there, but I actually had, I got science awards. I won the science fair one year, and then I got like this scholarship to this really expensive science school after, like, when I was senior in high school. But I don't know why, I never felt like I was good at it, but apparently I was. And I also did have a nerdy side where I liked to research about animals and bugs, and I used to keep this like insect journal when I was 12 on like bugs I would find in the yard.
And you named dragonflies.
I did.
Fly and Lucky.
Yeah, and I used to take pictures of like newts and salamanders around the yard. Dottie was the most famous one. He was a black and yellow spotted salamander. So yeah, that's a little known fact about me. So I have that much in common with Lanie. We have Colleen's next doll, Courtney Moore.
So we heard there was going to be a girl from the 80s, and when the photos were leaked, my immediate thought was, oh, she kind of reminds me of Babysitter's Club Stacy. And I'm going to try what I tried for several years with Rebecca, which is if I talk Shelly into getting her, I can play with her, because I
was disappointed. I wanted them to do like Claudia Kishi.
She wanted an Asian character. She wanted Claudia Kishi. I wanted Stacey McGill.
And I think she looks a lot like Mary Ellen at a quick glance.
You know, I learned from Rebecca, and that's a big part of why Rebecca's special to me, is because I kind of learned from Rebecca to be like, to just be more open-minded, more willing to embrace something. And part of why I caved so soon and got her was actually, you know, that was 2020, and we were at home. Like, I was doing a lot of my online, like, all my professional development was online at home, and I was bored, and I admit during work I was looking at the American Girl catalog. Looking at the catalog with Courtney's pictures so long that I was like, yeah, no, I definitely want this doll.
I joked around with Colleen that like, oh, you just got Rebecca last year.
I know, Shelly was joking that I was going to be the one getting a new doll.
She was turning into me.
That because Shelly was actually really good, which is why we only got Lanie, who was an unexpected gift in 2020.
I made the resolve to buy clothes for my old
Shelly was actually really good, and actually Lanie got us back into this big Girl of the Year kick when we bought a ton of their clothes.
They crimped Courtney's hair, as you can see. Then we have Girl of the Year 2017, Gabriella. She was also sold in 2018. Gabriella is actually also not a unique doll. She is a recycled Truly Me number... Ooh, I forget. I'll put the number in here. I happened to like that Truly Me doll from the get-go. She was always one I noticed, and I also don't have a lot of Truly Me dolls, so again, it didn't really matter. And when I saw Gabriella's spread, I fell in love because Isabel and Marisol, my two first Girl of the Years, were also dancers, but she has the coolest collection by far. I love her outfits. And I would have bought her in 2017 when she came out, but we were really broke.
And in 2018 we're still broke.
Same thing. So even though she was extended for a year, it didn't really help matters.
It didn't help us.
And so I tried to tell myself that I didn't really need her or want her. At the end of 2020, we were doing like eBay shopping for some stuff for our dolls for Christmas, and I happened to like...
And Shelly was talking about maybe getting a Nanea, maybe getting Gabriella.
I even though I was supposed to be just buying clothes, and I found this listing for this Gabriella doll with all of her outfits and a few accessory sets, and the price was like really reasonable. It was like buying her brand new on like some kind of sale, and she had already had her ears pierced, and she even had her hair styled at one of the stores
in Washington.
I think? Yeah, I rationalized to myself that I didn't need her, and I wanted to stick to my thing and buy clothes for my old dolls. So Colleen thought if I didn't buy that Gabriella, I would never buy Gabriella.
Which is why I wound up having to retake several Girl of the Year line type photos later.
Fast forward to February of 2021. I was in my closet getting something, and I come out of my closet, and McKenna is sitting on her little bunk bed looking at me, smiling at me, and all of a sudden that Gabriella doll I saw months before comes flooding into my mind for no apparent reason, and I head over to the Chromebook in the dining room, and I'm like, is she still listed? And lo and behold, Gabriella was still listed.
When Shelly said, I was thinking, oh my god, Shelly's an idiot. Why didn't she buy the doll when she had a chance?
She was a little bit cheaper. I ended up buying her, but then the seller, there was this big big snowstorm. The seller couldn't get out of their driveway for like a week. And then the day that they were finally able to get out of the driveway, her husband forgot to grab Gabriella and drop her off at the post office. It was this whole thing.
Gabriella is really special to me because the 2 years she was available were some of the most difficult for me in my personal life in terms of my mental health. So it meant a lot that I was finally able to get her.
Our two first Welly wishers, we have Camille and Willa. I always thought the Welly wishers were super cute when they came out in catalog, but because they're like $60, I was like, no, I'd rather put that money towards like the full-size dolls clothes, and when these hit the flea markets and stuff, then I'll revisit Welly wishers. The second week of the flea market season in 2021, this elderly couple we always buy like Monster High dolls and stuff from had 3 Welly wishers dolls. They had 2 Willas and 1 Camille. This Willa had her boots, and the other Willa was missing her boots.
And the lady likes us, so she told us to buy the one with the boots.
Yeah.
20 each. They're really cheap.
They were 20. At first I was like, I really like them and they're super cute, but I don't really feel I should buy them, and Colleen didn't understand why, because it was like a really good deal. It was way better than getting them on any kind of sale. And I'm like, the thing is, if we buy them, we're gonna go home and we're gonna buy clothes for them on the American Girl website, because that's the whole fun of having dolls, is buying them clothes.
And she wanted Welly Wishers to get into the clothes.
Yes, because they have adorable clothes. So that's exactly what happened. They did need some work. Camille had like big like streaks on the side of her face that wouldn't come off. I had to stain remove them. And then Willa's wig was kind of messed up.
Something funny about Camille is that because Shelly had her out on the table without clothes on, by the way, for stain removal, I kept picking her up and holding her and thinking, why do I like this doll so much? And turns out she reminded me of my childhood Twist and Style Tiffany doll.
We have the lovely and unforgettable Nanea Mitchell. So Nanea came out in 2017, and I really loved the idea that American Girl was kind of telling another part of World War II. When Nanea came out, I thought her face and head mold were really jarring, because I was used to the simplistic style. Like, for me, a doll like Gabriella was really exotic looking.
Right, because we just didn't have as much variety when we were young.
I feel in more recent years, American Girl has kind of been trying to capture like the customizer look of American Girls, the people who customize dolls and add extra eyelashes and things like that. I feel like they've really tapped into that market and they've tried to recreate that themselves. And
This is really smart.
And I mean, I've personally never liked custom American Girls. Kind of falling for Nanea slowly over time, and she's a Shelly doll.
I was literally about to say, I'm surprised it took you so long because she is such a Shelly doll.
I had a lot of other dolls on my mind.
Well, that's what it was. And we didn't have a lot of money.
Yeah.
So there were dolls like Gabriella and Cecile and Rebecca that we'd been waiting a really long time to buy.
Then at the end of 2020, when we were talking about getting Colleen and Courtney, I had thought about getting Nanea from American Girl if they ran a sale. That had come up, and we were looking for her on eBay. And it wasn't until June of 2021 when I actually found this Nanea. Colleen found her listing on eBay, and she was in her box, and then she had 3 extra outfits. This was one of them. The bidding price to start was like pretty reasonable, but not so cheap that a million people were interested. But I was like, I don't really need to buy Nanea. I got Gabriella a few months ago. Like, this is excessive. So I was at work. I work on a farm, and I had been there extra long that day. I had to help like go in the fields and mark where the rocks were for the hay baler, and I think I cleaned out the gutters. And so, you know, I was like hot and sweaty and disgusting, and I was about to take a shower, and I turned on the Chromebook to look really quick to see how much Nanea sold for, because it popped into my head and I thought she was going to be sold by now. There was 2 minutes left on her like bid, and I freaked out like, oh my gosh, she's still like, she's barely moved since I last checked, like maybe $1. So then I ended up really quickly concocting like the maximum price I wanted to pay where I'd still be like saving money, and I ended up winning her, and the bid didn't go up more than I think $5 or something, so it stayed like really cheap, so I got her on a really good deal.
And it made my day better because, you know, last day of school, the regular school system gets out like early, and I end up at my second job for a long time, and believe me, it was a long afternoon. And when Shelly texted me and said, I hope you don't mind, but I've been on that Nanea we've been talking about. I'm like, dude, why would I mind? Like, I showed you the listing. I'm like, this is the best news I've gotten all day.
I have my second Felicity doll. Her name is Emerald. I got her at the end of September 2021. So there's this local consignment store Colleen was going to, at the time, for work study with the kids at her job. And every week when she would go, she would kind of have time to scope out the toy section and see what there was. Well, one day she came home and said...
And I had a pile of, like, used American Girl clothes.
She said, I have all this American Girl stuff that was really cheap, and they also had some dolls. And there was this Felicity, and as soon as she said Felicity, I perked up. Now, bear in mind, I have seen my fair share of Felicity at the flea markets. I've probably seen Felicity more than any other historical character. I've seen ones that were like brand new in their box. I've seen really messed up ones. But I had always thought about getting another Felicity because my childhood doll is a Pleasant Company one and her skin's kind of yellowed with age. She didn't have much face paint to begin with. I used to take her in the woods, as I mentioned earlier. So when she told me there was a Felicity at the thrift store, I just had to go for myself and see. Now, there were also other things that were American Girl scraps that she wanted my input on. So we went and we picked up the rest of the scraps, and I looked at this Felicity doll. She was the most pathetic sight I had seen since Nellie. She had nail polish, like real nail polish on her nails and toenails. She was wearing her meat dress with nothing underneath it. She was greasy and scuzzy, and she had no eyelashes on this eye. None. Gone. And her wig was also all frizzy all the way up to the scalp, and she had like no pin curls that were visible. She was disgusting. I felt so bad for this Felicity doll. But I could tell through my doll vision that she had potential to be beautiful. I knew with like a good bath, some wig work, and some new eyes, she'd be the bomb.com. So after mulling it over for what felt like an eternity and carrying her around, I finally decided to spend the whopping, $35 on her. After I fixed her up, I thought a little bit more for about a week about what I wanted to do with her eyes. Because her eyelashes retracted, I wasn't sure if that would be something American Girl would pay for if I sent her in for eye replacement. They don't. It's not considered a factory defect, at least not now. I have a whole video on that will be uploaded sometime after this or before this if you're interested in how that whole experience went. But I decided just to send her in and pay the money because I got her for relatively cheap, and I felt like it would really hold her back like Kirsten Silvereye, because at that point she looked like she does now, just with one bad eye, and I didn't want to buy eyes and swap them and damage them, and that's just not something I do. So I sent her to the hospital, and she arrived on a day that was crappy. Like, we had eye doctor's appointments, there was a whole mess with that, there was some scheduling error.
Oh, and then the Jeep gave us trouble on the home.
Yeah, the oil pressure gauge on the Jeep decided to not work, and the lights kept flashing and beeping, which freaks me out. On the way home, we knew that she was getting delivered, so we couldn't wait to see her, and she was sitting all outside cold on the porch.
And I was afraid she might not be home for Christmas. She was home well before Christmas.
Yeah, it's the quickest doll hospital visit ever. There and back in 2 weeks. So I love her, and I named her Emerald because she has green eyes and she's a gem. Girl of the Year 2022, Corinne Tan and her little sister Gwen. Sometime in the fall of 2021, I got this survey thing from American Girl, and I decided to take it because you get rewards points, and like, hi, I could use those. So I started filling out the survey, and it turns out they were asking questions about the Girl of the Year that was coming up. And they played this like little short 30-second commercial or something, and in the commercial, Corinne appeared. Now, granted, it was a very quick-paced commercial, there weren't any good close-ups, but I saw this beautiful Asian doll with this amazing teal hair, and I was like, oh, she's pretty.
It was like how I felt about Courtney Moore. You know, you see one great image and your wallet runs for cover and says, hi to me!
So when I picked calling up that day at work, I mentioned it, and then this doll kept coming up into conversation, and I would lay awake at night thinking about her.
The funny thing is, she gave the commercial a bad rating because it asked things like, does it instill values in girls? And she's like, no.
It's like, it makes me want to buy the doll, which is
they
what
were
you
asking the
want.
wrong question. Does it make you want to buy the doll? Yes.
I mean,
yeah.
You're not like teaching good values, you're teaching bad values of shopping. So I couldn't get her out of my mind. So I was wondering, as the new year approached, like, ooh, will they run like some kind of pre-order? Well, it turns out that the day that she got listed for pre-order, I was like really sick. I got my vaccine, and I don't know if it's because I have low blood pressure to begin with or what, but I had gnarly side effects. Like, I had not taken a sick day at that point in almost 5 years. I have a pretty high pain tolerance. I'm pretty tough. I usually push through the pain. I couldn't even walk 5 seconds without feeling like I was gonna pass out. I laid on the couch and didn't move all day. Like, it was awful. I thought I was dying. Like, it was terrible. I've like never felt that sick in my whole life. Colleen comes in the room and says, "Oh, Corinne, she's listed." And even in my weak state, I sit up a little bit and I'm like, "Are there pictures?" But at the time, they just had her back side facing it, so you couldn't even see what you were buying. And I was really bummed out, but too sick to like go and investigate myself. But the next day, I wasn't feeling 100%, but I was feeling like 80% better. First thing in the morning after I did my chores, I'm like on American Girl's website, lusting at the not even full reveal. So I ended up pre-ordering her, which I've never done for American Girl, and normally I wouldn't because of how expensive they are, but I just knew I had to have this doll. And I got her pretty early because I pre-ordered her. And she is so stunning. She has her own head mold. She has this amazing colorful hair. She has these beautiful eyebrows and like extra painted eyelashes. She is so fascinating to look at and kind of jarring at the same time. And when we found out that she had like a Welly Wisher-sized sister,
Shelly was like, she could take or leave the idea, but I was like, I have this huge soft spot for the Wellies anyway because my Tiffany doll. And I was like, oh no, we're getting the sister. Like, it's gonna happen. And very end of January, I found out I was moving schools in the district I work for. And threw me this big epic goodbye party. And they pooled their money together and gave me a substantial American Girl gift certificate. And I knew without a doubt I wanted to buy Gwen because she's Corinne's sister. And it's going to be exciting, like, buying them clothes the rest of this year while they're still putting stuff out for them.
yeah, we've never had, like, dolls from the same collection.
Yeah, so it's, like, really exciting that we can, like, say buy the pajamas together. Really special gift for my friends. So
I think she looks like Jess.
yes, she does. And that's the other thing I was going to say about Jess earlier is that Shelly's first instinct when Gwen got here was, she looks kind of like Jess, and now I like her more.
Oh, and I should mention that Corinne, in some weird way, my dad bought her for me. So, like, a few weeks before Thanksgiving, out of the blue, we got this phone call from this guy who ended up with one of my dad's old cars. My dad used to collect, like, real cars, but, like, junky ones that he planned to fix up, but never did.
Never fixed up.
And we had sold this in 2012, like, shortly after he passed away. And I guess it ended up at some dealership out of state, and the guy needed certain paperwork because, you know, when my dad died, we had to go through like probate court and stuff to get like letters of authority to be like the executrixes of the estate. So he needed this special paperwork with a stamp, and it wasn't a big deal. Like, it was $25 for the paperwork, and we just mailed it to him, all said and done. He sent us a check for $100.
I know, which was like above and beyond.
A little piece off the dash of the car, and said he'd send us pictures of the car as it got restored. And he sent us pictures of what it looks like now, and I could like smell what it looks like through the pictures because I remembered it. So it's kind of funny that, like, because of my dad's old car, I had money to buy Corinne. And Colleen's friends bought her Gwen. I hope you all enjoyed this video. Like I said at the beginning, if you want to see pictures of these dolls or read more about them, feel free to check out our American Girl albums on Flickr. You don't need one to view my photos. And until next time, love your dolls, love yourself, and love your life.